Okay, so ready to dive in. Today, it's all about this world of social media, specifically how we can help teenagers stay safe online. And, it's a jungle out there.
It really is. And it's constantly changing, too. That's why we're bringing in the wisdom of Joseph Barnes. He wrote Social Media Safety, What Parents and Teens Need to Know, really dives deep into this stuff.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, whether you're a parent, grandparent, teacher, or just interested in this stuff, this deep dive is going to be super helpful. We'll be pulling out the most important points from Barnes's book and really, unpacking them.
Absolutely. We want to give you clear, actionable advice on how to keep teenagers safe in this, well, kind of crazy online world, right?
Absolutely. We're talking practical tips and strategies here, like how do these platforms actually work? What does online privacy even mean anymore?
Right.
And then there's cyberbullying, responsible behavior, all that good stuff.
We're going to try to cover it all.
Yeah. So Barnes really gets into the design of these platforms, right? What did you find most interesting about that?
Well, you think about it, and these social media platforms, they're not designed by accident, are they? They're built to keep users engaged, especially teenagers. The algorithms, the way they work, it's almost like a slot machine, right?
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, you get these unpredictable rewards like new content popping up, notifications dinging, and it just keeps you scrolling, pulling that lever.
Right, right. It's that constant need to see what's next. So if
Yeah.
these platforms are designed to be like addictive almost, what can we actually do about it?
Well, Barnes talks about this idea of mindful usage, and it's not about like banning technology altogether. I mean, good luck with that, right? It's more about finding a balance.
Yeah, a balance with real life.
Exactly. And Barnes suggests setting some limits, practical stuff, like having phone-free zones, maybe no phones at the dinner table or in the bedroom after a certain
Oh,
time.
I like that. Phone-free dinner time.
Yeah. And the thing is, these small changes, they can make a big difference. They can improve family communication. They can even lead to better sleep, which, we all know how important sleep is for teenagers, right?
Huge, yeah. And Barnes doesn't just talk about restricting screen time. He also talks about guiding teens towards better content, right?
Absolutely. It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
encouraging them to follow accounts that are positive and enriching. Think of it like curating their online experience.
Yeah, like creating a healthier online diet for them.
Exactly. And another crucial thing Barnes emphasizes is open communication.
Oh, yeah, got to talk about it.
And it's not just a one-time conversation, right? This has to be an ongoing dialogue. Parents, guardians, teenagers talking regularly about online safety and privacy.
Because let's face it, what was relevant 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, might be completely different now.
Right, exactly. It's always changing. And the goal is to create this environment, the safe space, where teenagers feel comfortable coming to you with any concerns they have, without being afraid of being judged or having their phone taken away.
You have to build that trust,
Trust is everything.
which leads to the tricky topic of monitoring. How do you keep an eye on what they're doing online without, completely invading their privacy and breaking that trust?
That's a good question. And Barnes suggests thinking of it as like checking in rather than spying on them. It's about safeguarding their well-being. And the key here is transparency. Sit down with them, set clear boundaries together about online activity. It shouldn't feel like you're sneaking around behind their back.
Right, 'cause that's just going to backfire, isn't it?
Right.
Make them more secretive.
Exactly. Barnes also makes a really good point about leading by example. We can't expect teenagers to be responsible online if we're not being mindful of our own digital footprints.
That's so true. They see everything we do online, even if they don't say anything.
Right. Our actions speak louder than words. And then there's the tech side of things, parental control apps, screen time limits, all that stuff.
Yeah, what's Barnes' take on that?
He doesn't dismiss them. They can be helpful tools, but he emphasizes that they should never replace open communication and education. You can't just rely on an app to do all the work.
Right, right. Technology can help, but it's not the whole solution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the specific dangers that Barnes outlines. Oversharing, that seems like a big one, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to put too much information out there.
It is. And what's scary is how seemingly harmless bits of information, when you put them all together, they can create this really vulnerable picture.
Like pieces of a puzzle.
Exactly. And Barnes talks about things like doxing, which is, when someone gathers your personal information online and then shares it publicly with bad intention.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, and it can lead to harassment, threats, all kinds of nasty stuff. And then there's the whole thing about location sharing.
Oh, yeah. I'm guilty of that. Tagging my location in posts without really thinking about it.
And Barnes cautions against that, especially for teenagers, sharing your location, posting from the same places all the time. It can make them vulnerable. It's like giving away your routine to anyone who might want to do harm.
It's removing that layer of privacy and safety. And Barnes also talks about reputational damage, right? Which is kind of a long-term consequence of things we might post without thinking.
That's right. What might seem like a funny comment or a silly photo today could come back to haunt them later. Future employers, college admissions, they look at all this stuff.
It's like there's no real delete button online.
Exactly. And even stuff shared in private groups, it can be copied, screenshotted, shared. You never really know when it might end up.
And Barnes makes a point about how even seemingly innocent photos can reveal a lot of information, right?
Yeah, like imagine a picture taken in their bedroom. Maybe you can see a street sign through the window or a landmark in the background. It might seem harmless, but someone with bad intentions could use that information.
That's a good point. Okay, moving on from oversharing, Barnes also talks about online deception, which is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, and teenagers, they can be more trusting online. So Barnes says to be very cautious about accepting friend requests from people they don't know in real life. And if someone's asking for personal information, money, favors, anything like that, huge red flag.
It's like stranger danger, but for the internet. And it's not always easy to spot the danger online, is it?
No, it's not. And Barnes also talks about all these scams, fake giveaways, contests, those things that are designed to trick people, especially young people, into giving away information.
Okay, let's talk about the digital footprint, which Barnes really emphasizes. I mean, what we do online, it stays with us, right?
Yeah, it's like a permanent record.
Yeah.
You might think you've deleted something, but often it's still out there in some form. And that silly post you made years ago, it could come back to bite you later on.
It's something teenagers really need to understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so cyberbullying, it's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And it's not always as obvious as you might think, right?
No, it's not. Barnes talks about how cyberbullying can be really subtle. It's not always just nasty messages. It can be things like excluding someone from a group, making passive-aggressive comments, spreading rumors.
Oh, yeah. It's like that social manipulation.
Exactly. And it's important to teach teenagers how to recognize these more subtle forms of bullying and how to deal with them. And, having open communication, letting them know they can come to you if something's happening, that's huge.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole issue of critical thinking. With so much information online, it's hard to know what's real and what's not.
That's a great point. And Barnes says it's important to teach teenagers how to think critically about what they see online, to question things, especially when it comes to influencers and all that, to understand that not everything is as perfect as it seems on social media.
It's about developing that healthy skepticism, right? Okay, so let's get into some practical steps. Passwords, privacy settings, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the basics, but so important. Strong passwords, like 12 to 16 characters, a mix of letters, numbers, symbols. Don't use the same password for everything. And never, ever share your passwords with anyone.
And it's not just passwords, right? It's about being careful with all your personal information.
Right. Your full name, address, birth date, social security number, all that stuff. Keep it private. Be wary of any emails or messages asking for that information. Always double check, make sure it's legitimate.
And what about privacy settings? Those can be confusing.
Yeah, but they're super important. Barnes says to regularly check and adjust the privacy settings on all your accounts. Social media, email, gaming, everything. Who can see your posts? Who can see your information? It's all about taking control of your online presence.
Okay, last but not least, we need to talk about something that's really concerning. Online relationships with strangers and this thing called sextortion.
Yeah, this is a really scary area. There are predators out there who target teenagers. They try to build trust, manipulate them, and it can lead to really dangerous situations.
Like what kind of situations?
Well, sextortion is a big one. That's where someone is coerced into sharing explicit photos or videos and then blackmailed with the threat of having those images shared publicly. It's happening more and more, and it can be devastating.
That's awful.
Yeah. And then there are cases of adults, pretending to be someone they're not, grooming young people online for inappropriate relationships. It's really important to talk to teenagers about these dangers.
It's scary stuff, but knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. The more they know, the better equipped they are to protect themselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into social media safety, it's clear that it's not easy, right? It's not just a one-time conversation.
No, it's a constant effort. It's about staying informed, being proactive, having open communication, and, being there for the teenagers in your life.
And, hopefully our listeners now have a better understanding of the challenges and some tools to help them navigate all of this. So as a final thought for everyone listening, the online world, it's constantly changing, right? New platforms are popping up all the time. So how do we prepare for what's next? How do we create a safer, more positive online world for future generations? What steps can we take today to make a difference?
That's something for all of us to think about.